I think there's a philosophy and a tactical approach. Let's first start with kind of philosophically. What does it mean when you gather an email address? A customer has said, hey, marketer, I'm opting in. This is my email address. And what they've just done is they've given you a privilege to communicate with them. Not a right, but a privilege. The thing you really want to do philosophically is make sure you're making a great first impression. A lot of marketers really fall apart because they are eager to message, but they're not making a great first impression. Tactically, there's some things to do right away. I strongly believe you should validate your emails. You want to make sure that you have good, clean, addressable email addresses in your database, and you have a good, clean database to start with. Part of the reasons is that email you're validating turns into your hashed email that we talked about previously that you're going to use for connections. If you're starting to work with a bad piece of data, it all kind of falls apart. Once you've added to your database, immediately build a dossier around the individual who sits behind that email address. You didn't collect an email address, you collected a person that you could communicate with. Learn about that person to create a first impression. And what I also recommend is for marketers who are marketing to consumers is to get some few data fields. And the most common data fields that we see would be age, gender, marital status, presence of children, location, homeowner status, and income. It's the 7 fields that I find marketers can do a lot with to really understand who the customers are. Always understanding who your customers are and making a great impression is universal. A consumer brand, you might be able to ratchet up the frequency a little higher as an example, where if you're B2B, you might want to change your frequency. Maybe if you're an automotive as an example and someone just purchased a car, you want to thank them for the purchase and then introduce them to the service center, make sure they get great service. And then you might want to build a campaign frequency around, when is the likelihood of services needed. But while you're a retailer where someone is more likely to buy at a greater frequency, you might want to communicate more often. So I think know your customer, right? Be respectful, make a great first impression is universal. The way you go about it might certainly differ. I think the most common thing they do is they don't collect enough data. And we're talking about data that's readily available. You can pull in behavioral data through an API call right away, right? It's all at your fingertips. You can bring in third-party data through an API call, have it all in your fingertips. You could feed that data into a tool that can algorithmically segment them into various buckets. But often companies, they get the email and the first thing to do is start blasting it up. Again, let's restate, just validate, understand who the customer is, right? And then use that real estate wisely and get the appropriate message based on the behavior and the data. Will really help you go a long way in getting a much better welcome experience.